What's up, guys? So this is my first ever story time, and I think it's a pretty interesting one. I hope you guys will enjoy it, but this is gonna be about the time that my boyfriend got another girl pregnant. Now, at this time, he is not my current boyfriend anymore. But anyway, it all goes back a few years ago. I met this guy on Plenty of Fish because like all my friends had just made accounts. So I was like, you know what, I want to make an account too. Like I want to try and like start dating again because I had just been cheated on by like my last boyfriend before that, and I was trying to start fresh. So I met this guy and we had our first date at the movies, and he showed up to our date like 2-3 hours late. So I'm gonna go through like some of the signs where like this guy probably is not the guy for me. So I'm gonna go through some of the signs that I saw but should have saw like when back then. Because you know, sometimes like you see something about a person, you're like, you know what, I can live with that, I can get over that, that's okay, you know, it's not that big of a deal, they're still a good person. No, these are signs that I should have noticed before. So our first date, first of all, we were supposed to be meeting up at the movies. I get there, we're like meeting there. So I get there and he comes 2 hours late. Like I'm sitting there waiting for 2 hours. First of all, we were supposed to go to the mall first, and then he took too long. Like the mall was about to close, we had to go see a late movie instead. I wait there for 2 hours for him. Normally I feel like I would have just left, but I was kind of like desperate at the time, you know, like I just got over a breakup, like I was going through some things, like I wasn't treating myself the right way, so I get it. But so we meet up at the movies. We had a really good first date. It was really fun. So we started like actually dating. And I believe we were together for almost 2 years by the time we broke up. Maybe 2 years by the time we broke up. So we were together for a while. Like it was a legit relationship. He asked me to be his girlfriend. Like there was a lot. Yeah, I was at his parents' house all the time because he lived with his parents. So this was like a legit relationship. Seeing each other every single weekend, sometimes throughout the week, like legit relationship. So another thing that I noticed about him, I was paying for literally everything. Like besides like our first couple of dates, like I paid for everything. Like, and we went on a trip together, I paid for everything. Like, and he was like always like, oh, I'm gonna pay you back, I'm gonna pay you back, it's just easier if you put it on one card. And never did. So always was very like tight with money, even though he lived with his parents and didn't really have like bills like that. But I did, because I lived by myself and I made less money than he did then. And so, sorry if you can hear my dog. So I made less money than he did at the time, but it's like he didn't care about making anything easier for me. It was all about making sure that it was easier for him, even though he didn't really have any bills, anything like that. So that was another sign. Like he was just very selfish when it came to things like that. Like I would get him like a present for his birthday, or I would get him a present for Christmas, but then like he wouldn't get me anything. So like I should have seen that, I should have noticed that. Like maybe he got me a present like 1 or 2 times, but besides that, like I was doing way more for him than he was doing for me. And I was like, you know what, I can live with that. Like he seems like a good person, I can live with that, it's not that big of a deal, right? So fast forward a little bit toward the 1.5 year or so mark of us being together. I wanted to go to Great Wolf Lodge, and so he was like, oh, okay, like let's do it. And so I booked the hotel, like I get everything ready, like we're gonna go to Great Wolf Lodge, which was maybe like 2-3 hours away from where we lived at that point, because I was back home in Michigan, and I think that Great Wolf Lodge is in Ohio. I could be wrong about that, I'm sorry. But so I book everything, get everything planned, and then at the last minute he's like, oh, can I bring my younger brother with me? And I was like, sure, not a problem. Like I was close to his younger brother too, not a problem at all. Like we'd be happy to have him there. He asked his parents said his brother could go, everything was cool. So we go and have a good time for like the first 2 days. I think it was a 3-day trip if I remember correctly. We go, we have a good time for the first 2 days. And I had noticed some things about him that weekend where like he would be getting phone calls like repeatedly from someone, and the contact name on his phone had just 1 letter. So I'm just gonna use the letter like L. Let's say the girl's name was Lauren that he got pregnant. So he had the letter L, which is not her name. So he had the letter L like pop up on his phone all the time, because that was what her contact was saved as. So I saw that someone kept trying to call him, and he was like, oh, that's just my boy L. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But he had done that before in the past with a girl that he was talking to, and I never figured out the full story. Like it was one of his kind of exes that he dated before. He saved her name in his phone under initials. So I should have seen that as another red flag, but I let it go. Like, I was letting a lot of stuff go at this point because I knew that he was texting other girls. Like, I didn't know if he was doing anything with them, but I knew that he was texting them. Maybe not inappropriate, maybe inappropriate, I don't really know. But I know the initial thing is something that he has done before. So after I find that out, after I see that he's like got these phone calls coming in, and I think it was his birthday weekend. That's why I went, okay, I remember it was his birthday weekend. And so he gets this like really long text, and I can't tell what it says, but you know how like you see somebody else's phone and they have like a long text on it, and you're like, like who's texting you? So he steps out of the hotel room and he goes into like the little ice room, and I can't see him at this point because I'm still in the room. So he goes out there, he's gone for like maybe like 20-25 minutes, and he comes back into the room, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, nothing, like my aunt just texted me to tell me happy birthday, like just making this stuff up. And I can tell that he's just literally lying to my face right now. Once again, I let it go. And then I was sitting in the hotel room. His brother had gone like downstairs or something to go hang out or whatever. And so I get a message on my Instagram, and I'm looking at my phone and I recognize the name. So I recognize the girl's first name. So like I said, we're gonna call her Lauren. I recognize the girl's first name because I think that he had told me a story about her before, and it was a girl that he had dated in the past. And I knew her name. It was a very unique name though. So I remembered her name from before, and I was like, oh, this is that girl. And so it's actually a comment on my Instagram post. That's what it was. So I look at the comments from my Instagram post, and it says, I bet he didn't tell you about the baby that we're having together, or something along those lines. It was something very, very close to that wording. And I was like, what? Like, that can't be right. Like, no, he's not. No. Mind you, we have spent every single weekend together since I met him. And normally, like, he just goes to work and goes home. So I'm sitting there like, when would he have time to like get another girl pregnant? Like, when would this occur? So I'm like, what is she talking about? And so I show him the comment, and he's like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, I just recognize her name, her very unique name, from a story that you have told me before, and all of a sudden you don't know who that is? And he's like, no, I don't know who that is. And I was like, okay. And he's like, whatever you do, just like don't message her back, just like let it go. So I'm like, I don't think I can let this one go. And so I messaged her privately, and I was like, hey, like, what are you talking about? What's going on? And she doesn't message me back. So I'm asking him, I'm like, hey, like, what's happening? What's going on for real? And he's just quiet. Like, he doesn't say anything at all. And he was like, well, like, I never did anything with her. So he was quiet for like a good 2 hours. Mind you, I'm asking him the same question. I'm very calm because it takes a lot to get me upset. It takes a lot for me to yell. I don't yell like that. And so I'm sitting there pretty calm, like asking him what's going on. So his brother comes back into the room. So that means that we have to leave and go talk somewhere else, because I don't want his brother to see this. So we go outside into the parking lot, and we're walking around the Great Wolf Lodge parking lot, like, and he starts crying. And I'm like, what are you crying over? Like, why don't you just tell me what's happening? And so he was like, and I was like, that means that it's true, isn't it? And he was like, no, like, I didn't ever sleep with her. Like, I never did anything with her. I never touched her. She's lying. Like, and like, she's like, she's lying to you. Like, she's not actually doing this. Like, she's lying, she's lying, she's lying, she's lying, putting it all on her, right? So this dude is like breaking down crying, and he goes, even if she was pregnant with my baby, that's not the worst thing that could happen to our relationship. And I was like, excuse me? Like, are you trying to say like you didn't do anything with her, but even if you did, it wouldn't be that bad? Like, I don't understand. And he's like, yeah, so I know other situations where it's happened in my family before, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, if someone has a child with someone else, like, sometimes for love you got to make things work. And I was like, you just said that you never touched her, so like, how are you having her child all of a sudden? And he was like, well, you know, like, she could have kept one of the condoms from when we were together years ago. And I was like, oh, so you know her now? Like, I'm lost right now. Like, I don't know where his lies are going. His lies are not making sense. Like, and also he's not admitting it, so like, I can't just like go in on him because he hasn't said anything yet. And so he's telling me that like, he did know her, they did date a while ago, which is what I thought before, and he's telling me that he didn't do anything with her this time. He's like, oh, maybe she kept a condom from like 2 years ago and then she like used the, you know, stuff in it to like, you know, impregnate herself. And I'm like, no. He's like, well, she could have froze it. And I'm like, okay, we're getting like wild here. Like I'm pretty sure you can't just throw it in the freezer and then like use it 2 years later. And like, also, who is doing that and why? So like, unless you're like actually planning to have a child and you're like going to a cryogenetics lab like to go and get your sperm frozen, like who else is doing that? Who's doing this at home? Like, and for that reason, for somebody that they're not with and that they broke up with like 2 years ago, like who, why, like the motives, like wouldn't you just like reconnect, like if you know? All right, anyway, besides that, like his whole story just wasn't making sense is my main point. So mind you, his family does not know about this. And on the way home, his mom calls and I'm driving, I think. Yeah, I think I was driving, and he puts his mom on. Actually, no, he was driving because it was in his car and it hooks up to the speaker. And so his mom calls him while we're driving back home. And he like tries to get her off the phone as fast as possible because she's asking him, and it's on speaker, like she's like asking him, she's like, what's going on? Why am I getting messages from this girl? What's happening? So I can only assume that she got the same message from the girl as I did. And he's like sitting there telling her like, oh, I'll talk to you when I get home, I gotta go. So he like rushes off the phone with his mom, but I already know that she got this message, which means that his mom does not know that he got this other girl pregnant either. So we get back and I go home, I talk to my mom, I'm like confused as to what's going on. I tell her a little bit about it because I'm just scared. And he came over to talk to, actually I went over to his parents' house to go talk to him again. And he brings me into the kitchen to talk about everything, right? He's acting like he's the victim. He's acting like he's so distraught over this whole situation. He's like, my mom is upset over this, like, and I can't believe that she did this to me, like saying that I'm doing this stuff. And so I asked him, I was like, look, I'm willing to have your back 100% if you didn't actually do this. I'm willing to have your back over it, like, but you have to look me in my eyes and tell me that you didn't do anything, because if you did, and if I find out that you did, like, everything is done. And so he looks at me and he was like, well, we did some things, but like I didn't have sex with her, but like we kind of fooled around some. And I was like, we just went from you don't know her to you do know her, but you dated her 2 years ago and you think that she froze your sperm and then inseminated herself. And then we went up to this point where you're like, oh, well, I did some stuff with her, but I didn't have sex with her. So me being myself, I'm like, okay, you're just completely lying to my face and you're okay with it. And I accepted that for some reason. Like, I accepted the fact that, like, look, he's just lying to my face. That's exactly what's happening. And we're gonna have to move on from here. So, like I said before, when I entered this relationship, my self-esteem was not at the best point because I had just got done being cheated on my last relationship. I was like, maybe this is what relationships like, maybe this is just life. And so the next thing that happens is he has to meet up with her because she's starting to have like doctor's appointments. His mom was like, you have to be there for her. And so I think he met up with her, and then he came to my apartment and called her, and so that we could talk about everything, not me and her. Like, he went on the balcony and called her, I gave him privacy, and then he comes back in to talk to me. And he was like, so she's trying to like sweeten me up, telling me that it's a girl and that we're like really should be excited about it because it's our baby, it's a miracle, blah blah blah, all this stuff, which is great. Babies are great, love it. Yeah, I get the idea, I get it. So anyway, he was like, yeah, she's trying to like sweeten me up, but like I still don't think that it's mine. And I'm like, okay. So then I look at Facebook, and you know, you can't help but creep on the girl that's having the child of your man, and of your man, quote unquote, because no. And I look up there and she has this post where she posted the baby's like future name, like I don't know, like if it was John. Well, I just said it was a girl, so probably not John, but like you get it. Like it said like John, like middle name, last name, and the last name was his last name. And I was like, okay, so now the world knows. All right then. And my friends are hitting me up like, what's going on, like what's happening? And I was like, I don't even know. And I remember sitting down talking with his mom after that, and she was like, you know, like, you guys should just really make it work. Like, love is worth it. Like, you should really try to work everything out with him. And I was like, well, he keeps telling me that I shouldn't be that upset about it. He's acting like this is not a big deal. And she was like, so she had to talk with him. Like, he started acting a little bit better, like pretty much like kissing my butt because I was trying to do whatever I was trying to do. I was so lost at this point that I didn't know where my mind should be. I didn't know who should be upset, what was going on. And if you've ever been in the midst of a situation like that, sometimes you don't feel like you're right even though you are, and it's just confusing. And so I stayed for a while, and the weekend after, I think I'm backing up a little bit, sorry if this is a little out of order, but the weekend after I found out, our families were supposed to have like a gathering at his grandparents' house because they had met, like my grandparents had met his grandparents before, and like my parents were gonna meet his parents for the first time. So we had already had this planned. So this is, everybody's thinking that since we've been together for like 2 years at that, or a year and a half at that point, that him and I are about to get engaged. So because all this family is coming over, and he asked me, he's like, I still want to propose to you. Like, I still want to get engaged. I still want us to get married. And I was like, yo, if you propose to me, I'm going to say no at this thing. Like, I can't do this. I don't want this. Like, in front of all this family, like, maybe we can work out in the future. I'm not going to cancel the event because like everybody's already planning on it. And I didn't want to like cause that type of trouble. And so our families meet that day. Everybody's expecting for us to get engaged. We don't get engaged, even though he wanted to propose to me then. And he told me that multiple times. And so like his mom is like, oh, you guys should start planning a wedding. Like, you guys should get married. You guys should do this. You guys should do that. And I'm just like still so lost. And I'm like, maybe that would make things better. Like, maybe if I had something to be excited about like that, maybe I would feel better, because I was feeling terrible. Like, everything inside me just felt horrible all the time. And it was just so like, so confusing to me, and I just was not myself. It was like the whole time I just like wasn't in my own body. I wasn't like having my own thoughts, my own feelings. I was just confused and lost over this. And I was like, you know what, maybe it would be nice to have something to look forward to. She's like, yeah, you guys should start looking at purchasing a house, because then you guys can be together. You'll probably have like joint custody of the baby, and like it can be there sometimes. And I was just like, yeah, sure, it sounds like something that would be a little better, I guess. And so I stayed with him for a little bit, and then I started to look back, and I was having such a hard time mentally and emotionally at this point that I was like, I need to figure out my own feelings, because I'm not happy whether we do any of these things or not. And I started to look back on the things that had happened with us before I realized, or before I found out that she was pregnant. So I remember, oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this. When I found out that she was pregnant, she was 6 months pregnant. She was not just like 2-3 months pregnant. She was 6 months pregnant. So this baby was coming in 3 months, and I don't have time to like, I don't know what my thoughts are at this point. I just know that 3 months from now there's gonna be a baby. It's gonna be his. Like, and she was 6 months pregnant, and no, like, he didn't think to tell me. And so I remember 3 months before finding out that he told me that we should try to have a baby. And at that point I was like 21 years old. I was like, actually I think I was 20. I don't think I was 21 yet. And I was like, I don't want to have a baby right now. Like, I'm like just starting out my new job. Like, I was like, I got things to do. Like, I don't really want to have a baby right now. Like, we only been together for like a year. I'm not ready for that. I just wasn't. And I told him, and I was like, no, I'm not ready to do that. And he's like, no, like, we really should. Like, you know, it's good to have kids young. Like we should really start trying to have a baby. And then when I looked back at that, like, this was my last straw, because he tried to get me pregnant so that because he tried to get me pregnant when she was 3 months pregnant, but I didn't know yet. And he tried to get me pregnant when she was 3 months pregnant, so that when I found out later on that she was pregnant, I had to stay with him. And when I realized that, I don't know why, for some reason that was my last straw, because it's not like he didn't do enough up until that point for me to just be like, I'm done with you. But that was my very last straw. And I was sitting there thinking about that at work one day, and my mind just said, what if you don't go through all this? What if you just let it go and you live your own life? And that's exactly what I did. And that has a lot to do with why I moved to LA, and a lot to do with why I'm the person that I am today, because I left that situation and because I went through that situation. So that's the story. There's a lot of stuff missing, and I went a little bit out of order, and I'm sorry, but that is the story. And if you guys have ever had anything like wild happen to you, like, let me know in the comments. I love hearing other people's stories, and I love hearing how they like overcame like hard parts of their life, or like somebody doing something to them, or like them doing something to someone else. Like, I love that kind of stuff. So let me know in the comments. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you want me to do more story times, let me know too, because I'm definitely down. I love sharing this with you guys, because in case you're going through something and you want to make sure that you know that you're going to get through it, these are what get me through things. Like, I was Googling, I was looking at YouTube videos. It helps you get through to see that other people have gone through stuff. And so I hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this one and other stuff. So yeah, I'm just rambling now, so I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye guys.